I realized I had never talked about getting my Security Plus. So I'm going to talk about how I felt about the exam, what happened before the exam, things like that. So before my Security Plus, I knew nothing about tech. And my buddy says, "Hey, you should get your CCNA. It's a good door opener for tech." I was like, "Okay, I'll work on my CCNA." I start working through the CCNA material, and it is just so ridiculously hard. Coming from a non tech background, not into computers or anything like that, the CCNA was just like, it was too much for me. So at that time, I thought I can come back to this. I just definitely need to know more. And some people I knew in tech were kind of saying, "Oh yeah, that's kind of a harder cert." Which now in hindsight, now that I've passed the CCNA is ironically an easier certification. But when you're new, it is not an easy certification. So they kind of steered me the direction of Net Plus, A Plus, Security Plus. So I started kind of studying for the Net Plus and the Security Plus at the same time. And I had gotten a random Juniper certification. That was actually my first tech certification ever. Um, the JNCIA. That one was pretty easy. It was a cheap test, so it's just not that big a deal. But uh, after that, the first one I took was the Security Plus. And the reason I took it over Network Plus, because I started studying them at the same time. The Network Plus just felt a lot more technical. The Security Plus, honestly, I think is a very easy exam. I think even starting from scratch, I feel like most people could finish it in 2 months. I, if you're studying full time for this one thing, maybe do it in a month, but that's where you're kind of getting ahead of yourself. Life's not such a rush that you can't spend 2 months on an exam. But the Security Plus, it's really, really more like trivia heavy. You're not going to get that into configurations and stuff from my experience. Um, I think I might have had a lab or two, but I'm not even sure I had a lab. It was just so I took it a long time ago now, but the questions on there were kind of like, an email, a phishing email was sent to the CEO of a company or something like that. What type of phishing is this? And it'd be like whaling or schmishing, SMS phishing, or spear phishing. And it's kind of the questions I felt like were easy enough, where if you're just familiar with the terminology and the vocabulary that's used in the Security Plus, you can pretty much pass it. So I would rate this exam pretty easy. I personally think, way easier than the Network Plus. I even personally, I think it's easier than the CompTIA A Plus. The CompTIA A Plus, there's a lot of questions on hardware and stuff that if you're not a computer guy, you haven't been repairing computers or have a job fixing computers, you just don't know, you know. At that time, I didn't know much about it, and they ask a lot of questions that are very hardware based, where the Security Plus, I don't I don't remember even having hardware on it because cybersecurity sounds extremely fancy. It sounds extremely complicated, and don't get me wrong, it is, but the concepts taught in Security Plus are really not that complicated. It's kind of like the ideas around user permissions and why not every user should have permissions to everything. It's more stuff like that where it's a really fundamental concepts that it's talking about, and it's just not getting that detail oriented. It's really not that technical. So I say if you're wanting to take your Security Plus exam, I would say allocate 2 months to it, be safe, take a bunch of practice exams, and make sure you understand the vocabulary. I feel like if you just understood the vocabulary of the Security Plus, you hardly need to know anything else. I'm not going to say don't learn anything else, but I'm just saying it's such a vocabulary heavy exam. If you're just familiar with the terms, it's going to get you a long way. So, I took it years ago, but I will say that was probably the easiest tech certification I've got. And it sounds super fancy. I know the government requires it for a lot of government jobs, DoD, but it's just not that serious of an exam. If you've had trouble with it, just just study up again. Do the flashcards, do the practice exams. It's going to work out in the end.